What is up, everyone? How you guys doing? Today, we're going to be talking about standard character banners. Right now, we're currently in 4.6, and so I think the discussion is, are the standard banner characters still good in today's economy? It's been like 32 patches ever since the start of Genshin Impact, where most of these characters were dropped. And so, in today's day and age, how do they fare up? Are they power crept or are they still useful depending on what units we have? All right, so if you'd like to find out, do stay tuned. Before we carry on, do know that I stream live on Twitch, link is down in the description below. And if you like this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, share, all that good stuff. Let's begin. All right, so when we talk about standard banner characters, we are talking about the 7 that you can get from either wishing on the standard wish, using your Acquaint Fates, or by losing a 50-50 on the limited character banner. So these characters usually entail Dehya, Tighnari, which are the newer ones they released when Sumeru came out. We also have Keqing, Mona, Qiqi, Diluc, and Jean, who were available since the very start in 1.0. So so these are the 7 characters. We're going to be talking about how useful they are. Let's just put one thing clear. Obviously, they're not going to be taught the meta because most of them, especially the 5 OGs, they have older stats, right? But depending on which team comp you're building, you may find some of them more relevant than others. In the end of this video, I'm going to put a tier list that depicts where I will rank all 7 of them. So yeah, let's begin with the very first one. Let's begin with Jean. So Jean, animal sword user. So she's more of a healer / sub DPS character. Her main thing is her burst. The Dandelion Breeze produces a Dandelion field that on cast deals animal damage and also does a party-wide heal. I think that's really great. I think that many people who were known in 4.2 when Farina came out, party-wide healing became a lot more valuable in order to max out her buffs. So besides the healing, this Dandelion field thus infuse your characters with animal. So for example, if you're burning, then you clear the the pyro element. If you have cryo, which makes you slow, it cleanses that, and the hydro makes your cooldowns go higher. That does that as well. At the same time, it continuously does animal damage. So some of you may have heard of a very niche comp called the Sunfire team with Jean and Bennett. This is how it activates by having the Dandelion field and Bennett's burst stacked onto each other, so they are constantly swirling pyro. But that's really niche. Most people use it as a healer in most cases. As I said, she scales on attack, so she's attack scaling. Her other stuff are pretty good. Her elemental skill is mainly just does animal damage. The thing is that if you hold it, you're able to like suck the enemy, and then you're able to like fling them in the sky so that they take 4 damage when they fall. This one, it does scale off her level. What I mean by that is that she can only throw enemies or like suck in enemies that are at max 20 levels above her. So for example, if an enemy is level 90, then you can throw it at level 70. But if you're like level 60, then you can't do that. And the others are pretty decent. She's able to her on her basics. This is just pretty okay. She's able to heal based on the basic. And also the Dandelion Breeze will regenerate 20% energy, so it does help out with your energy regeneration quite a bit. I think the good thing about Jean is that obviously she's animal, so because she's animal, she's able to access the VV set, right, helping with the swirls while healing as well. So maybe Kazuha is probably a better option, but let's say if you need both swirl and healing, then she's able to compress both roles into one. I think that's something that we should take note of. Sorry, that's HSR. Her constellations are still pretty okay. E4 is the main one if you're playing her with like Shao or Wanderer or Hazel. The 40% animal rest is pretty great. And then the C2 is okay. I don't think it's that big of a deal. It does increase the movement speed and attack speed. It does help out on like characters like Ayato, for example, but that's about it. I think that Jean, I think in this day and age, she's pretty great. Of course, I think that if you have Xuan Yun, Cloud Retainer, or even if you have like Baiju, maybe like her value does fall off. But let's say, like, for me, I don't have either of them. I think that Jean does make a really good case of being used, especially since I have Farina. And, you know, she does, like I said, she does very, very well with Farina. So yeah, if you have Farina, she's definitely a must pick. You don't have Xuan Yun. But yeah, like I said, she's pretty great. Let's look at the next one. Keqing. Keqing is was the very first, or not the very first because Razor existed, but the very first 5-star Electro DPS character. Her main part of the kit is that she's able to infuse her basic attacks with Electro. So by using the Stellar Restoration, which is a skill, when you, so it basically throws like a lightning stiletto, and then when you use your skill again, you are able to, after the attack, after the teleport attack, you are able to infuse with Electro. The other way to proc it is to charge attack, but that's, no one plays physical Keqing. No one does it. Don't bother. So yeah, so she's her charge attacks do have pretty decent scaling. Although it does cost a lot of stamina. So I think that's like one of her downfalls is that her stamina consumption really does affect how she's played because her charge attacks are her main part of a kit. But still, she does pretty decently. Her ultimate, which is basically does multiple attacks, consecutive slashes, as you can see, does quite a decent number of attacks. Is also low energy cost, so it's pretty spammable, especially to bring double Electro, because double Electro resonance means that you have more energy recharge, if I'm not wrong. So yeah, definitely it does a lot of damage. And when you use your ultimate, after that, Keqing gains, sorry, that's one. Keqing gains 50% crit rate and energy recharge. And because her ultimate is pretty low energy requirement, you could basically run her without any energy recharge. And as long as you bring double, even as long as you bring double Electro, you're pretty fine. I think that Keqing definitely had a bad rap throughout Inazuma, and then when Dendro came out in Sumeru, her value definitely improved a lot. One of the reasons is because additive reactions tend to do better when you have many attacks, and that's where Keqing shines because her ultimate and her even her charge attacks do multiple instances of aggravate damage. Obviously, after the ICDs and stuff like that. So yeah, Keqing is pretty great. I think that she's also pretty fun to play, in my opinion. Playing her in Dendro teams, she does only have that one niche, so she's pretty stuck with Dendro, and you kind of need like Fisher or another second Electro character to support her. But like I say, she was very, very official, which is very, very accessible, especially at C6. Okay, the C6 is not accessible, but Fisher's an accessible character. But if you have her constellations at C6, she really pops off with Keqing very, very well. And Keqing definitely carried me a lot during the Sumeru version because of how broken Dendro was. My only one concern, besides her energy required, not energy, her stamina consumption, is that she is very, very because she's only good at niche. With Chlorine coming on in 4.7, it is, if Chlorine is good at aggravate, her value might fall off, and this is where she gets power crap. But currently in 4.6, because we don't know what Chlorine's kit is as of now, I think that she's still in a pretty decent place. Obviously, when the live stream comes out in 1 or 2 weeks time, then we will see how she fares. As for constellations, I do have C2 on her. I think early constellations aren't that really great. I think her best constellation is her C4 and also her C6. Her C4 gives her quite a decent amount of attack, 25%. And because you're always triggering electro-related reactions, she's pretty great. I like using a Thundering Fury because the 4-piece definitely gives her almost 100% electro uptime. So yeah, like I said, Keqing is great. You can obviously run Gilda on her, and that's fine. But I like Thundering Fury, and I think that she does have pretty decent value as a standard character. Granted, like I said, Chlorine might come and power creep her, but I think that she, even if so, I think that she's had a pretty decent run, and I'm not going to falter for that. All right, let's move on to the third character, if I can find her. Mona. All right. So Mona, Hydro Catalyst 5-star user. I think that there's some things that are very unique with her. Firstly, she's more of a sub DPS support in the sense that she amplifies damage. So if you've seen on like YouTube or on like TikTok, where people have like 1 million damage comms, most of the time you may see Mona there. So why is that so? That's based on her ultimate Stellaris Phantasm. So Stellaris Phantasm has basically on her ultimate or her burst, she traps opponents and she inflicts this omen on her, which is like a bubble. All right, and then basically it gives a damage bonus. All right, so what? Like I said, I'm not built her up, so her damage bonus was only like pretty small. But once you build her up, basically she takes bonus damage from bursting the bubble, and I think that's pretty great. So yeah. So yeah, the omen does give the damage bonus. Sorry, not the bubble. So basically, it's kind of like a damage amplification, and definitely that's how the big comms happen. One of the things that you may have noticed, like in early Genshin, was that freeze team, the Morgana team with Mona as the Hydro applicator. That's because somehow, and it's not stated in game, I think, if you apply the burst on a frozen enemy or you freeze the enemy with your burst, even when you pop the bubble and everything, it will not burst, but you still have the damage amp. And I think that's pretty cool because that's how you get all the big damage that you see from like early freeze teams, even with the Ayaka version that came out in 2.0. The rest of her stuff is pretty okay. Her skill is a taunt. It does hydro damage and stuff like that. Pretty self-explanatory. And then she's one of the two unique characters alongside Ayaka that has a special sprint. This ties into the one of her talents where if you use the sprint near an enemy, it will create this taunts, the Phantom of Fate. And yeah, so definitely helps with crowd control and everything. And lastly, because most people usually build her with Emblem of Seventh Fate, this is a pretty good talent to have with her because it definitely boosts her hydro damage in accordance with her energy recharge. So, but here's the thing. I think that the times where you use her for direct application is definitely far gone. I think there are better ways and more consistent ways of doing that. At the same time, yeah, so like there's times where you can do that with animal character, but I think that while she has dropped, I don't think she will ever be fully power crap because I don't think that that any other character provides similar buffs. And like I said, it's most people, if you like the one-shot comps, then Mona makes that list. But I don't know, she feels like she has fallen off quite a bit. Her Eidolons are Eidolons. I need to stop saying Eidolons. Her C constellations are still pretty good. You know, her C1 helps boost hydro-related elemental reactions, which are all pretty good. Electrocharge, Vaporize, Swirl, and Frozen. Definitely helps out a lot with that. So like in freeze teams, it helps out quite a bit. In Vaporize teams, you do more damage, so on and so forth. And then her C2 and C4 are pretty okay. I think her C6 is where you can make it into main DPS because she does a lot more damage on her charge attacks. I think the one thing I say about her charge attacks is that it consumes a lot of stamina, 50 stamina, which is something that you won't use very often. But I think that depending on your team comp, I think that it could still be fine. Like I said, the damage boost is like pretty good if you want to play a DPS Mona. But other than that, yeah, Mona's pretty okay. She's still, I think she's still usable. I think she's pretty decent, but I don't think that she's. I think that besides her damage M, there is nothing she provides much until you actually get like constellations. All right, let's move to number 4, which is Diluc, Pyro Claymore character. Also came out with 1.0. Everyone knows him as Batman. So Diluc. Main DPS competed with Keqing for main DPS top dot status in the early game. So what does he do? Basically, his skill is a pyro damage that can be used 3 times. I think that is 4 seconds per cooldown. So in theory, you could have actually like 100% uptime because of if you space out your attacks properly. And then, ooh, I actually don't like this music. Next song, my bad. All right. So yeah, like it gives you a bit of 100% uptime, and then his ultimate, which is the big phoenix that you have seen many times, does a lot of pyro damage. And then what happens is that it gives you a pyro infusion. So it basically gives you a pyro infusion. It has a 12-second cooldown with 8 seconds of infusion. It has a pretty low energy cost. The one thing is that when you get this talent unlocked, you get a 4-second longer pyro infusion, which means 100% uptime. So I think that it's pretty great. I think the problem is that because Diluc is Claymore, while he does more damage in theory, how do I say this? His attacks are much lower, right? I think his C2 kind of helps a bit, but he needs to take damage, so that's a little bit weird. But yeah, I mean, like his conditions do give him pretty decent augmentations to his speed, but other than that, I think it's pretty in all things considered. I think that the one reason why he came back in popularity recently is because of his plunge damage. I think it's the highest multiplier, one of the highest multipliers in the game, his plunge and his low high plunge damage. Because of the release of Shen Yun in 4.4. So it definitely gave everyone, it basically made everyone to shout, right? And I think he takes advantage of his high scaling because of that. You know, playing with Farina, for example, and get more damage buffs. And, you know, it definitely helps a lot. You can play with Yelan and Xingqiu. Definitely helps with his pyro, with his vaporize. It really helps you vaporize more, right? And I think that all in all, he is pretty decent. Obviously got a bump from Farina and Shen Yun. I think that is still a pretty expensive team, so it's not something that everyone will run. So obviously if you have the tools, you know, you can make the best out of it. But if you don't, then he becomes pretty subpar in this day and age. Like he's not bad, but you know, he's not going to be like topping the meta, if you know what I mean. Yeah, so I think that for artifacts, I think he does pretty well with like the Crimson Witch, which I've never found, honestly. He's also pretty good with the Marashuse Hunter, if you're using with Farina in particular. But even like things like Glad also works pretty well on him. So yeah, I think like Diluc, I think that in order for him to be most optimal, he needs expensive pieces. But even if let's say you only have a Xingqiu and a Sucrose, I think he still does pretty well. But you may have to put in more investment because his stats are a little bit older. All right, let's talk about the last standard unit that I have, which is Qiqi. So Qiqi is a 5-star cryo sword user. Holy crap! Let me change the playlist because I don't like this playlist. Holy crap! Okay. All right. Where was I? Qiqi. So Qiqi 5-star cryo sword. She's more of a pure healer. And she scales off attack just like Jean. The thing about her is that she does really little cryo application, and the worst thing is that her skill doesn't produce energy particles. What this means is that unfortunately you can't use her to battery somebody like Ayaka or like Ganyu, and that does make it detrimental. She has her own energy requirements as well, pretty high at 80. What this means is that probably you will run sacrificial on her. And the other, because of the energy, and the other reason why you run sac on her is because this is a pretty long cooldown. While this lasts for 15 seconds, it is a 30-second cooldown. So it definitely affects the way you apply it. And like I said, if you don't apply energy, then it causes a lot of problems. However, Qiqi is one of the best healers in terms of pure healing amounts. That's why she makes very good use of the Ocean Healed Clam. I think that being said, the Ocean Hue clan doesn't make her like a top tier DPS otherwise. And because, like I say, in this day and age, Genshin players prefer healers that provide other utilities, whether it's something as small as providing swirls or attack buffs or a dendro application or electro application, right? If you're just a pure healer that does nothing else, I think that's where these characters' value drop a lot. And Qiqi is one of those characters. Thinking of like Honkai Star Rail, right? Another game that I play and would like to cover more. People talk about Huo being really good because she has energy regeneration and she also has attack boost and stuff like that. And Fu Xuan mitigates damage and she also gives crit rate, stuff like that. And so when it comes and then you don't value people like Luocha as much. And then so when it comes to Qiqi, that's pretty similar as well, where pure healing just doesn't cut it. Like you want more. And she doesn't even battery for her team, and that's pretty detrimental for a support. And so I think that she's like, obviously you have her, she's your only healer, she's fine. But I think that as you progress more into the game, you realize that you want more out of each character, and Qiqi doesn't provide that besides raw healing. And I think that's a little bit unfortunate because I think that she has a pretty cool design in all things considered, zombie Chinese, based on the Chinese zombie and stuff like that. But it is what it is. Unfortunate that she is not as strong as she could be. The rest of the stuff are pretty the talisman really doesn't really do much for the team. And the constellation, I unfortunately have C2. But yeah, the rest of the stuff is just pretty okay. Right? I don't know what they're trying to do with her. Maybe really build her as a pure healer, but once that went out the window in the terms of the meta, then that's where she fell off. All right, now let's talk about the two characters that I don't have, right? Which are Tighnari, they came out in 3.0, and Dehya. So let's talk about Tighnari first, right? Tighnari is a Dendro Bow user. I think that he's pretty underrated in terms of DPS. Obviously, because he came out in 3.0, his stats are a little bit more updated as compared to someone like Diluc or Keqing. The great thing about him is that so not really great thing, but the main thing about him is that he's a charge shot user, similar in the veins of Ganyu and Lini. Sorry, let me drink some water. All right, so very similar to Ganyu, his charged attacks have two levels. First level does like normal damage, and the second one does more, right? What they call the Reef Arrow. So Reef Arrow hits 4 times, so it does more damage, obviously, right? You can see from all of here. But the difference between him and Ganyu is that for him, when he uses his skill, which is the mine, he throws a bomb that also gives him decreases the cooldown of the Reef Arrow by 2.4 seconds. So if you ever seen people like use the skill and then like aim straight like almost immediately, it's because of this skill. This definitely reduces the time taken for the level 2 charge. Definitely helps him quite a bit. And then his ult is just a lot of burst damage, and like I said, pretty low cooldown, pretty low energy cost, so it definitely helps keep consistent damage. Most people playing in aggravate teams, so in aggravate teams, he requires a little bit of elemental mastery, which obviously he can get from his talents. And so yeah, like honestly, he is pretty good in not aggravate, sorry, spread. My bad, spread teams definitely help him out a bit. And obviously elemental mastery does feed into his charge shot, and his ultimate increases the damage quite a bit. And so yeah, honestly, he is pretty underrated in my opinion. I think that he's probably the best standard character. His constellations do help him do more damage, give him more crit, more dendro damage, more elemental mastery to everybody and stuff like that. And obviously being able to do more of your level 2 charge shots helps out quite a bit in him clearly more damage. So obviously if you have him, don't take it as a bad thing. He can be pretty good. Obviously he loses more to like Al-Haytham in terms of dendro damage, but I think that as that he does more burst, like he's better at dealing burst damage, while our Hatham is more better at dealing like consistent damage. So it's a pick your poison kind of thing. And I think that if you enjoy the charge shot style of play, I don't think Tighnari is that bad. Last and not least is Dehya, who came out with 3.5. I think that many of you may have known about the Dehya incident, but how, like, you know, her kit was so bad that, okay, I don't know whether it's because her kit was so bad she was thrown into the standard banner, or whether she was a standard character banner, or whether her kit was bad because they're going to put in the standard anyways. Again, I don't know, I'm not sure, but everybody knows that Dehya is pretty underwhelming, or was underwhelming. I would say though that Fontaine did bring her value a little bit up. So why? So in Fontaine, many of the characters have HP manipulation mechanics, and so the thing about Dehya is that Dehya has this thing called the Fiery Sanctum Field, right? So when she uses her skill, she puts out a Fiery Sanctum Field. Basically, that anytime your anyone in the field attacks, right? You are able to do a coordinated pyro attack. As you can see over here, a coordinated pyro attack with the Sanctum Field. Out of here, sorry, this one. All right, and then sorry, my bad. This one. Her kit's pretty long, right? You do a coordinated attack whenever an opponent inside takes damage, and then if your active characters are in the field, they basically take reduced damage. So if you play Honkai Star Rail, this is the mechanic that Fu Xuan has. All right, you're able to mitigate damage, and Dehya herself absorbs this damage. So she's more of a tank bruiser kind of character instead of a all-out DPS. And then at the same time, Dehya basically, she's able to mitigate this damage, which is taught by Red Main's blood. All right, if it reaches 200%, if I'm not wrong, 200% max HP, then it will stop. But it definitely helps also with reducing interruption. So obviously people like Neuvillette, C0, or even like Arlecchino actually do pretty okay with her. The only problem is that her damage scalings aren't the best, and that also leans into her ultimate, her burst. Basically, it's very similar to Raiden's burst in the sense that if you switch out, it will cancel. You can't use charge attacks. You just basically spam the same thing. So okay, that's a little bit different from Raiden's burst, but you know, it's like you enter into a different stance, right? And so it looks cool, but unfortunately pretty underwhelming damage. So mostly if you're playing her, you're mostly playing her for the mitigation. Obviously, she does have some decent self-healing, where if she goes below 40%, she starts to heal and stuff. And definitely helps. So like I said, she's not bad, but I think that she was disappointing to the community because of her role in the Sumeria story, and they thought that she's going to be pretty great. She might be the character that power crafts Xiangling, for example, but in the end, it is what it is. I would say though, she has useful constellations. Her C1 does make her does encourage you to go full HP. I think her C6 also is pretty decent. You increase the crit rate and stuff, and crit damage. So, you know, if you have more Eidolons, you know, you may find more value out of her. But I think that for all the hype that she generated, I think that most people felt that she was disappointing. All right, so where would I rank these characters in a tier list? So we have a similar tier list, S to A, S to D. So, and I'm going to move this around so that my camera doesn't block it, because in the artifact video, many people have shared their sentiment. So, you know what? Let's do this. So, where would I put these characters? Well, first and foremost, let's start with the obvious ones. Tighnari is right on top, and Qiqi is at the bottom. I rank this based not only on so I don't want to judge this based on the meta, because obviously as standard characters, as older characters, they don't do as much like damage, but I think relative to each other, I think this is where we'll rank them. Qiqi, unfortunately, you don't really need her. Even when Furina helped out like burst healers that do a lot of healing, unfortunately still wasn't enough to bring her out of the slump that she was in. Jean I'll put in A. Keqing I'll put in B. Although I really love Keqing and I want to put in A, I think the introduction of Chlorine might kill her, or might power creep her finally. But I think that even so, I think she's still pretty decent at B. Like, you know, like as I said, she's fun to play anyways. And then I think for Diluc and Mona as well, I want to put Diluc in A because of the new Shen Yun and Furina team. However, I think that it is a very expensive team. And yes, you could probably get by with like Xingqiu and Yelan. But I think that his main potential being locked behind Shen Yun does impact his like I'm not gonna recommend you build him if like you need to push Shen Yun. And what if you don't like Shen Yun? Like if you like Shen Yun and you want to build Diluc, go for it, right? Then that will probably be an A in your mind. But in my opinion, for general consensus, like he's hard carried by Shen Yun, and I wouldn't recommend like pull who you want, right? And last but not least, we have Dehya. Like I said that Dehya does have some value. I think that the word to describe her is disappointing, unfortunately. She could have been better than she was, but I think that she's not like as bad as Qiqi, for example. And so I think this is my list. Let me know in the comments below if you agree with this. Do know that I also stream live on Twitch. Link is down in the description below. Thumbs up, subscribe, share if you like this video, and also comment. Really appreciate it. I really appreciate you guys getting me to over 100 subs over the last few videos. Really appreciate it. Really great. So yeah, we'll see you guys next time. Until then, stay healthy, stay safe, be good to yourselves and the people around you. See you guys next time. Bye.